Hello, welcome back everyone. So this one I wanted to do more about don't punish pain and the whole opiate epidemic thing, CDC guidelines, that kind of thing. There was something interesting that I noticed about this, something very puzzling, and I wasn't entirely I didn't have everything ready make a video. I usually always make these on the top of my head. Very, very seldomly have I ever scripted anything. There's a few videos here and there that have been scripted where I've typed it out and then read it, but very, very few of those. Very few. I do like the soft lighting, so I'm going to go with this. I like the dark atmosphere. So, anyway, if you do not know, and edgy intellect, if you're watching this, I want you to pay very, very close attention, because I know that you are you're not an sort of semi-anarchistic like me, but you're on that sort of domain of anti-fascism, sort of Antifa scale, the same as I am. So I want you to pay attention because I find this interesting. If you do not know, there's dozens of doctors out there that are being arrested and locked up for merely doing their job, which is prescribing pain medication for people with things such as chronic pain. Not just chronic pain, but there's a story out there, an article. I could do another video on that, about a woman who had a mastectomy. Right out of the hospital, wouldn't give her any pain meds. I've read an article or story about a guy who literally died from chronic pain. I've seen suicide after suicide after suicide after suicide after suicide of not just chronic pain patients that can no longer deal with the pain because the quality of life has diminished, but also several doctors that have committed suicide after the DEA raided their practice. And another actually I show you a screenshot of this. This was an obituary that was posted by the CPP, which is something Patients Network. It's like a combination of patients and practitioners. They do a lot of advocacy for marijuana. But in this obituary, it outlines a person that wrote to them. My old pain doctor here in Alabama got attacked by the DEA for stupid BS reasons. In May, they abruptly closed the clinic. People showed up to their appointment to the office doors being closed and locked. My pain doctor was such an amazing man, as he was a doctor. Thankfully, I was able to find another amazing pain doctor. But this post isn't about the new pain doctor. A couple of weeks ago, I found out my old pain doctor committed suicide in his home on July 10th. I'm heartbroken. The DEA has blood on their hands from patients and doctors alike. He had his vices and issues in the past, but who hasn't? He literally did everything the DEA asked of him, and then some. And he still got screwed over. Dr. Man, Chikes, I guess that's how you pronounce it. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. You saved me from wanting to commit suicide many times myself. You deserved better. I hope you can finally rest. Now, the reason why this doctor committed suicide is not just some, like, arbitrary thing. I mean, like, his entire, like, the DEA, what they do with these doctors that they're arresting, they give them a plea bargain of basically 40 years in federal prison for drug trafficking or losing their license. So their entire livelihood either way is just completely flushed down the drain. Basically, the guy saw his livelihood over. Gone. One foul swoop. Done. For merely doing his job. There's another article that I thought interesting that people should be aware about, and I will post the link to this article. I'm only going to give you a brief stance from it. And it says, I think what they sent is an embarrassment. This is in regards to the 2016 CDC guidelines that came out of the CDC with a group of people. And so this is a person commenting on it. They said, I think it is an embarrassment. There is no reasonable or rational explanation to redact any part of a suggested guideline process, especially since the CDC admits the guidelines were misapplied and misinterpreted. And this was said by Julie Killingsworth, who's a disabled activist. I believe the ridiculously heavy number of redactions is a clear admission of guilt. The CDC has committed at least one or multiple federal crimes, and the House Oversight Committee needs to closely revisit their December 18, 2015 letter of concern to Dr. Tom Frieden. There was indeed a cover-up here, grounded primarily on the escape clauses in the FOIA, enabling legislation which exempts the government from revealing its internal process or consultations to the public. This was said by Richard Lawhern, PhD, who heads the Alliance for the Treatment of Intractable Pain. Unfortunately, this broad exception to full public disclosure permits agencies to hide their own biases, failures of transparency, or arbitrary decisions. Masking the identities of individuals who contribute to policy can also make it particularly impossible to access bias, conflict of interest, or outright misrepresentation. The extensive redacting of documents raises concern that the reviewing office has engaged in a broad cover-up by masking the identities and professional or personnel affiliations of those who contributed to the CDC guidelines. It could well be that there would be nothing surprising or unseemly in the redacted information. But if you don't want people to think you're trying to hide something nefarious, then the old saying that sunlight is the best disinfectant certainly would seem to apply here, said Bob Twilleman, PhD, a former executive director of the Academy of Integrative Pain Management, who was also a member of the CDC's Stakeholder Review Group. It's mystifying and sad to me that the CDC will not reveal who was involved in the deliberations that led to the issuance of its opioid prescribing guideline. Even though they have publicly revealed much of this information elsewhere. Twillman points out that the identities of the core expert group, as well as other advisors and contributors to the guidelines were published in a JMA article and by the CDC itself when the final guideline was released in 2016. I'm not going to read all of that article, but many things were redacted. Many things. And there was only one person that actually investigated as a form of checks and balances, being that we supposedly live in a democracy or a republic or whatever, a system that puts liberties and freedoms before others. So I find that deeply fascinating, but it's deeply troubling that basically the CDC has redacted so much information. They've definitely overstepped their authority here. And it's not even the CDC that should be in charge of something like opiate prescribing, prescribing opiate medications. It should be the FDA that oversees that kind of thing, not the CDC. And the CDC is Centers for Disease Control, not the Food and Drug Administration. Unfortunately, the only person that did investigate them was some Republican guy. I don't remember what his name was. I ended up following him on Twitter. But ironically, super queer punks, or also known as Punks for Progress, is also following him. But I find this gross abuse of power to be unacceptable. Something else that I wanted to point out, though, is, does this make any sense to you? And I have to tread lightly here because I'm not ready to put on the tinfoil hat, and nor am I willing to step outside of YouTube's little guidelines. So I don't want to be accused of spreading conspiracy theories, but I want people to think about this. We are in the midst of a pandemic. Supposedly, it's pretty serious. You can die from this Delta variant that popped up and all the issues that they're having with the vaccines and whatnot. Remember, I told you there's dozens of doctors being arrested for merely doing their job. And the various cases, they range from anywhere from 200 opiate prescriptions a year to 2,000. And this can be tracked through Nartrax. And each state has a varying level or degree or something that does this, that tracks the medications, the pharmacies, and the doctors that you see. So that's how I know about this. What level of opiate medications they're prescribing is through Nartrax. So this is something to think about. Pandemic, virus out, COVID-19 thingy. Does it make a lot of sense to be arresting doctors right now? I mean, you're talking about the possibility of arresting completely innocent people that have done nothing wrong. Doesn't that sound familiar? And think about the gross overreach and abuse of power involved. And then coupled on top of it, you have innocent people, doctors, doing their job, helping people with pain and managing pain, being arrested arbitrarily during the midst of a pandemic. Does that make sense? Does that seem like a rational thing to do during a pandemic? We do not have an unlimited supply of doctors. That doesn't seem like a very rational thing to do from my perspective. From my perspective, it would seem more rational to turn a blind eye to this whole opiate epidemic thing and say, be quiet, shut up about that. We have a pandemic to deal with. We can't afford to be locking up all these doctors right now. But that's what we're doing. I find that odd. Just something to think about. I'm not drawing any conclusions. I'm just saying, just think about it. I was looking into corporatocracy, or what Mussolini, I found out it wasn't Mussolini that said this, it was a guy who published something about fascism in the Italian dictionary, Italian encyclopedia, shortly after Mussolini died. But it was quoted saying that fascism should more appropriately be called corporatism, or something like that. It's that it's the merger. Fascism should more appropriately be called corporatism because it is a merger of state and corporate power. That's what it says. A lot of sites say that that is Mussolini's quote. It is not. I forget the name of the guy who they are quoting, but it's a fascist that wrote an encyclopedia in Italy based off of Mussolini's philosophy. So maybe I just got it in my head here doing all that kind of research and looking into all that, but it does seem awfully strange that during the midst of a pandemic, they're arresting doctors. And I'd like to be very clear, too, that if you look at overdose rates, they're highly exaggerated. You get a lot of misinformation. So let me clear this up for you. Overdose rates of opiates are sky high. They're at record-blowing numbers in the United States. But opiate medications are at the lowest prescribing rate ever recorded. People are not overdosing on pain meds. They're overdosing on what they get from the street. Things like heroin mixed with fentanyl. And a lot of the overdoses that come from pain meds are not, in fact, overdoses. They're suicides. You don't accidentally take an entire bottle of medication. That's not, oops, I just took the whole bottle, my bad, oopsie daisies. Those are suicides. But they like to call that an overdose and chalk it up to the rest of the opiate overdoses that happen so they can continue on this crusade. Personally, I'm of the opinion to end all prohibitions, including the ones on opiates, whether they be regulated or not. That's been my stance. But it's the people who go after unregulated opiates that caused the government to react with the opiate epidemic, causing tons of people with chronic pain the inability to have access to adequate pain management medication. Puts me in a tight spot. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. I will upload more videos about the chronic pain community and this whole struggle with the opiate epidemic, because it's actually pretty foul. And it might be in the future, 60 Minutes has already put a hit piece out on it, that they are going to start attacking anxiety medications, benzodiazepines, in the near future. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like, share, subscribe. Hit the bell button on any channel you're subscribed to. All that stuff. And I will leave links to some articles in the description. Be sure to check those out. They have a lot of important information. And with that, I'm out.